Hi, and welcome to the Uplift with Dabney Brice, the podcast where we'll elevate global stories by shining a spotlight on underrepresented narratives, educating ourselves about current and historical events and diverse cultures and communities. Let's journey together to step outside our comfort zones, uplift each other, and make the world a little bit better along the way. Welcome, my uplifters. It's your girl, Dabney Brice. And today we have the wonderful Abani Rollins on the podcast. She is currently a law student at the University of Michigan. She previously worked on Capitol Hill, and she received her bachelor's degree at Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, also known as FAMU. And it's also a historically Black college and university, HBCU for short. We talk a lot about the HBCU experience and why that experience matters, what it was like for her then to go to a PWI, and also the type of life that she's creating for herself. Honestly, just take notes. I would say take notes for this episode because she throws a lot of gems. And so, enough of me talking. Let's dive in and let's get started. Avani, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, I'm just happy to have you here. Just for a little bit of background on how we know each other, we interned on Capitol Hill in spring of 2018. So it's been a minute.
We were roommates.
And we were roommates in our little studio apartment that was for three of us, but like shouldn't have been for three of us, even two. It was definitely for one person. We made it work and we had a good time. I feel like the three of us were really, really like good together.
Yes, us and our little group we had. It was a good experience.
It was a good experience. So shout out to all the people that we knew from that. But yeah, if you can just introduce yourself to the audience and share a little bit about your background.
Okay, cool. So hi you all. Pretty sure Dabney, she has an intro ready. My name is Abani Rollins. Let's see, I am 23. When you all see this, I'll still be 23.
Yeah, her birthday is coming up.
Yeah, I'll be 24 soon. I am from South Florida. I'm from Miami. Let's see. Fun fact about me is I actually try and take a nap a day, and I have been working out at least twice a day for the past like 2 months.
Wow.
Because I started this initiative just to exercise once school ended, and I see a difference. So I'm happy about that. And let's see. And I guess maybe I should mention just, for the sake of the topic, why I decided to go to law school. Mm-hmm. And in short, my dad, he worked as a community organizer, activist, you could call him, down here in South Florida. And so he took me often with him to his meetings with political leaders, and I saw how like the law, government, and community are intertwined. And that's just what kickstarted my interest in the law.
Wow. That's good to know. I know your dad means a lot to you, and I feel like he's a very heavy influence in your life and
definitely
the path that you took. So that's really nice to know.
Yep, definitely. Thank you.
Also, I can concur with the naps because I remember.
Listen, on lunch break, I will be there. I will be going to take my little nap.
She would just go back to take a nap. She was like, I'll eat at my desk. Like, I'm a nap.
Yes, literally, I would take a nap. Yep.
I respect that. How do you, this is a side note, but like, how is that with like school and then like working when you can't leave to go take a nap?
Well, in the era of Corona, like my first year of law school, it was all online. And so let's say I have 30 minutes in between class, I would just, roll onto my bed or my desk because it was right next to each other. I think that when we're back in person, it's going to be a different scenario. I'll be driving to campus. And so if it's that deep to me, I'll go on my car if it's that deep. But maybe it's time I start getting out of the habit of taking my little nap a day because I'm soon to be real life professional. So we'll see.
I mean, I feel like that's something we should follow because European countries will take their lunch break. They'll take enough time where you can get a nap.
Yeah, they will. will. They
And
will.
like
And
every shop will be closed because everybody's going home to eat and take a nap.
yeah, we should adopt this 4-day work week too. That's
Mhm.
what I'm on.
I preach. That's literally me.
Yes.
So I guess to get into more about you. So like you went to an HBCU. You did not go to
I did.
Howard because in case y'all didn't know, there are more HBCUs than Howard, even though Howard's great. But you went to, okay. I remember this acronym. Let me try. Florida A&M, which is Agricultural and Mechanical University. Did I get that right?
Precisely. Yes, I attended the illustrious Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Did I ever do my greetings for y'all when we were on the hill?
Yeah, you did, but can you do a little bit right now? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
So at FAMU, we have introduction that they teach everybody. Everybody always does it. And so, for example, if I also do my FAMU greetings right now, based on like where I'm at right now in life, they'll go like this. So greetings and humble salutations. My name is Abani Rollins. I'm a rising second year law student at the University of Michigan School of Law.
Wow.
So it's a
Amazing.
little extra, but
I remember you showed us
yeah.
that. I was like, you know what? I respect that. It sounds
Yeah.
professional. It sounds succinct. It's a little, it could turn into like a little like elevator
It
pitch.
gets people, yeah, it
Yeah.
gets people, yeah,
I
yeah.
respect it. So, can you tell us more about your HBCU experience? How was that like? And did you know you always wanted to go to an HBCU?
Yeah, I would describe me going to FAMU as kind of like a rite of passage in a way.
Mm.
My parents went to FAMU. They actually met there. My aunts, my uncles, and I'm talking about like my great aunts and like great uncles and great, all them. Um, and if people in my family, if they didn't go to FAMU specifically, Florida A&M, but aka FAMU, they went to a HBCU.
Mm.
So growing up, it was a scenario where it was like there was, well, I ain't gonna say there was no other option because my parents they didn't put that on me, but there was no other option for myself. That's what I wanted
Mm.
for myself. I knew that I wanted to attend a historically Black institution. And I would describe my experience as very nurturing. It was fulfilling, it was exciting, it was humbling. And I think that, or I should say, I know that it most definitely helped, mold me into the well-rounded, confident person that I am now.
I love that. I didn't go to an HBCU because honestly, I didn't. They weren't like an option for me. Like I
Yeah.
didn't know. I went. I lived in a mostly white town, and so like
Mhm.
when I talked to guidance counselors, like really, if any, they were gonna push any school, it was the New York State schools, and
Right.
like as far as I'm concerned, I don't know of any HBCU in the state of New York.
Yeah, they're mostly in the South.
Mhm.
And I will say that another thing for me that just kind of just made it apart from like that, that family lineage and wanting it for myself. I also just wanted to continue to be in an environment of Black excellence or just being around Black people. And so you could kind of say like South Florida is like segregated in itself. And so the way my upbringing was set up is, elementary school, I was around Black people. In middle school, it was diverse, but it still had a good number of Black kids. I just happened to be in advanced classes, but like Black people, we gonna flock together, right? Like
Mhm.
that's what we go towards. In my high school, that was like a mini HBCU, and I loved it. And so honestly, like I truly love my experiences just being around like our people. And so it was it wasn't even a question for me, honestly.
Yeah. And I love that you had that. And I've always been a little jealous of HBCU people because I'm like, damn, if I had known, I would have at least like applied and like visited these schools.
Yeah.
But like and my parents are immigrants. So like they only knew so much about what
Hmm.
colleges were available. And a lot of it was also like financial, just like
Yeah,
You're
definitely.
gonna
I
go
understand.
to whatever school gives you the most money.
Gives
It
you the
don't
most.
matter what school it is, HBCU, PWI, whatever it is, like that's the school you're going to.
Yeah, and I know that myself and also my friend group and just, family graduates, period. I think we do a really great job in advocating for our institutions and letting people know that they exist. So, for example, whether it's in church,
Mhm.
like mentoring like the little kids, letting know that, hey, like, this is an option for you. Or just even like, for example, if I'm like networking, and it's really sad that, nowadays in what 2021, people they just don't know what a HBCU is, you know?
Yeah.
So I just, I'm there to inform, advocate, push forward, get funded towards like in any way possible.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I wanted you here too. It was
Mhm.
just like you like one, you went to an HBCU that I already had Michael on and he went to two
How?
HBCUs. Um, and now he goes to Howard Law, but like you
Yeah,
went from an HBCU to PWI, and we'll get into that because I definitely want to know like how did you do that? Or like how do you like manage? But I also feel like HBCUs don't get enough credit
they
for
don't.
like the type of professionals that they produce and the people and the quality of citizens within their student body that they produce.
Yeah.
The majority of people in our internship went to HBCUs, and I had such huge respect for y'all because I don't know, there was just like a level of like class, a level of pride with for your blackness and not being afraid to put that forward that I was just like really admired by. And that was something that I had learned when I went to college, when I found, how like you said we flocked together. I found more black people and I was lucky enough to be surrounded by people that helped me to be more proud of my blackness and to show that out more. But like y'all were on another level and I was just like,
Yes, yes, yes. Even
what?
now, even now, so I was in Ann Arbor in a fall semester. I only had one class in person. I only went sometimes. But I remember one time this girl, she was like, girl, like you dress so well. Like you always look so presentable and put together. I just be wearing, whatever. And I'm just like, well, this is just what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just what I do. And also like I I knew that was a scene when I was stepping onto Ann Arbor, like or onto campus, like like how people um just like might be presenting themselves and comparison to me, um like attire wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not extra by like no means necessary, but I'm also not wearing like sweatpants and a t-shirt to class.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just not what I do. But anyway, going rambling, but
No, you're
my
fine.
cousin, yeah, my cousin, I was talking to him about it before I started law school. And he was like, well, it's all right if they think that you're doing too much because when you look good, you feel good and you perform better. And I feel like that's just something people gotta keep in mind. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you just never know like who you're gonna see, who you're gonna, come across. And so just like, put forth your best effort to, just present yourself well.
Yeah. And like I said, I respect that because like you definitely, well, I feel like you've learned that from probably your family as well. But
Yeah,
like, like
my parents, they let me walk outside wrinkled.
your parents were like, no, my mom was that like that way. She was just like, she would be like, what are you wearing? I was just having a conversation with her the other day about like, mom, I've never seen you in sweatpants ever. And she's like, because I like to look good and feel good. And I was like, you know what? That's okay.
I can respect that, yeah.
Hmm. So again, like HBCUs don't get enough credit and sometimes they get a bad rep. And like there's different sort of myths and misconceptions about HBCUs. So like, can you tell us a little bit about what those are and just overall why HBCUs are important?
Yeah, let's see. One thing that definitely comes to mind is people will put out the narrative that, if you go to a HBCU compared to like these other top institutions, it's going to be like a setback. Like it's going to, you know, be harder for you to get, where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that, that's not necessarily true. Are we underfunded? Yeah. Do we have the same resources as these, white elite institutions? It don't even got to be like just these white schools,
Mm-hmm.
you know, not necessarily, but I don't think that impacts just like our ability to do the job well. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make us any less prepared for the real world. For example, like currently right now at MR, as far as like my knowledge, I'm the only person enrolled that attended a historically black institution. And that's a whole nother story. But guess what? I'm right there with them, right? And I go to like a top law school. And, I do think that, you know, like going to FAMU helped me get into Michigan, to be honest, because it's just like these schools and these jobs, like when recruiters want black students, like they're not going to go like to FSU or wherever else. Like they're going to go to these historically black institutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah. So what was your second question? Why are
Um,
they?
well, why are they important? But I do have like another thing to
Yeah,
add.
go on.
Like a misconception I feel like people get about HBCUs is that like you wouldn't be able to acclimate to like white people, which I always was like, I feel like that's high key like racist like, to say that because it's like
I
why should I don't know. I was just like, there's some white supremacy, internalized racism in even saying
Yeah,
that because like at the end of the day, like we know what it's like to be black in this country. So whether you
exactly.
go to a PWY or you go to an HBCU, like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, I definitely I don't agree with that narrative like, oh, you're not going to be able to acclimate. I think that going to a historically black institution, has helped me better learn, to acclimate and be like, in corporate America as a black professional, right? So yeah, I agree with you. You're right there.
Yeah.
And yes,
Continue.
and to answer your next question as to why like the schools are important, apart from like a historical standpoint of why they should be, honored and preserved, I think that also it's a culture thing, right? Like I mentioned earlier, like you're nurtured, you're supported, you're catered to, you're cared for. I think, in a different way than you would be at a predominantly white institution. Um, and also, I think that an important note to mention when we're considering closing the racial wealth gap, for example, HBCUs are like much cheaper than these other schools.
Mm-hmm.
And, for example, like I just think like how Black women, like we're the most educated, like here in America. And I think about how like HBCUs, they graduate like what, like the most Black doctors and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And so like from an economical standpoint, it also makes sense. And you're
Yeah.
supported. Like it is a good experience, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you mentioned also in terms of funding
Mm-hmm.
for HBCUs versus like the white schools, even though the white schools have more funding, doesn't mean that they give those fundings to support Black and Brown students.
Precisely.
And
And
so when you go to an
I
HBCU, it's kind of already like built in its foundation.
yeah, it's just cheaper. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting, and I think geographics matter as well, maybe about like someone's perspective when it comes to finances and stuff. Because like I have an associate, like she would have liked to attend a HBCU, but she didn't get money. Whereas she got money for like, one of these top white schools, and that's where she ended up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah. So support, oh, that leads to my next question. Um, how do you think like those of us that support higher ed, how can we support HBCUs?
I think that for one, financially, right? Donating and making sure that opportunities come HBCU's ways. I think that also making note that there's other schools outside of like Howard, Morehouse, Spelman, and even like, FAMU, because it is a big
Mhm.
school. Like, they're smaller institutions. Um, I think that when recruiting, making sure that there's an HBCU grad in the room and also, considering them.
Mhm.
And let's see, what else? Ask your question again. I want to make sure I'm on point.
No, just how can we support
Okay. Yeah.
HBCUs?
Yeah, and making sure like you employ HBCU grads. I really just think like it's like a big thing is money, to be honest.
Mhm.
Like we need money, and so I know, for example, like with you and I, like we're on a hill, and like I'm unsure if you plan on pursuing politics or public office anyway. I
I
don't.
don't want to run for public office. No. People want
Yeah,
me to run and I'm like, I'm good. I'd rather write your policy and the
yeah,
path.
I'm good. I'm good too, but it's just like if we could get more people in, these seats who have historically Black institutions as a priority and ensuring
Mhm.
their longevity, that'll help as well.
Yeah.
But you know, the schools aren't going anywhere.
Mm-mm.
Um, like, and I would say like the bigger schools, smaller schools, like they're of more, of concern. And so, for example, like FAMU's always going to be there. FSU going to try and inch, closer and closer to us, try and buy the school out, but like FAMU's always going to be there. But it's the smaller schools that I think that definitely need some attention to them as well.
Yeah. I didn't even real like I went to UD for my master's. Um, and like there's an HBCU in Delaware. Like Delaware State University
Yeah.
was like 2 seconds away. And like I had no idea. Especially
Hmm.
because people would confuse like University of Delaware. The people would be like tell me, like, oh, you go to Delaware State, right? And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
no, that's an HBCU. Like I would correct them, be like, that's an HBCU. University of Delaware is not an HBCU.
Do you think they assume that because you're Black, or
No,
they
I
just
think I think they like whenever there's the University of New York and then there's New York University, kind of like, you know what I'm
so kind of
saying?
interchangeably?
It's the
Yeah,
same thing with like Penn and Penn State, like
I
UPenn
got you.
versus Penn State. Um, that's what I was thinking. Like that's how it felt. Um,
Yeah,
but like to be able to say, like, oh, actually, Delaware State University is an HBCU.
it's
And
an
they're like, oh,
HBCU.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
And I'm like, yeah, there's one over there. Like, you
yeah.
should support it.
Also, one thing that I try and remember to do is to actually say like, oh, that's like, a historically Black college, or that's a historically
Mm,
Black university. Because a lot of people, like, I'm not gonna say a lot of people, but I feel like there's a good number of people like who don't know what an HBCU is, right? And so
mhm.
it's one of those scenarios where it's just like you tell someone something, they're just like, oh yeah, okay, I get it, but they don't really know, right? So you
Yeah,
just gotta put it all for them.
it's long, but it's necessary if
Yeah,
people
just try
don't
and say
know.
it.
All right. So switching gears a little bit, we'll get back into your
Yeah.
experience
Uh-huh.
in law school. But I've always wanted to ask you, like, I mean, I lived with you, so I would get
Kind
the
of.
stories. But during our Capitol Hill internship, you were placed in Marco Rubio's office. And if you don't know who Marco Rubio is, he's the senator of Florida, even though he's the Republican senator of Florida. And you're not a Republican. And just a little like preface, we interned through the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation and their internship program. And most of the times you were placed wherever you were from or had ties to. So like I was in Senator Schumer's office because I'm from New York. Um, but like it didn't matter if you were Democrat or Republican. Like it was just like for the spring, the semester programs, like the summer program, I know they only went to people a
Caucus.
part of the caucus. So yeah, you were placed in a Republican office. So can you tell us how that was for you and what did you take away from that?
So, so when they first called me, so we were technically like communications interns, but
Yeah.
I had applied for like emerging leaders, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
And so,
same. But like I did not do any communications.
yeah, same here. But yeah, so um, the internship coordinator, like she called me she's just like, hey, and I'm like, hey, she's like, we want you, but before we place you, we just gotta actually like do you mind being in Marco Rubio's office? And I, I'm just like, whatever, because like I'm just excited for opportunity entering on a hill with the
Mm-hmm.
CBCF because I just really wanted to be honest. I wanted to be in DC, wanted the opportunity, and conveniently, like I'm interested. Well, more at the time, I was interested in like foreign policy and such. And he sat on like the foreign relations committee, and um, they said that his office wanted somebody who was from Florida and attended the HBCU. And so I guess I just crossed off all the check marks that they wanted. So that's why I ended up in his office. And it was tough, to be honest. Spring 18, this was during the time of the DACA, the
Mm-hmm.
border wall debates, and the Parkland shooting.
Yeah.
And so constituents would be calling our phone all the time. And, it was heart wrenching, right? Because it was calling the phone snapping. And I couldn't be like, yeah, girl, like I feel you, I agree. I just reiterate the policy standpoint to the senator. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that was tough. It was morally taxing. And I just I helped them the best way that I could. For example, when they would call asking for, services and referrals from the senator. And what's unfortunate, and I don't know how Schumer was just like I just knew like they weren't really gonna get back to these people,
Mm.
you know, like, so just like they're just calling thinking that they're gonna get some help, from, their from the senator because that's what he's supposed to do. But it's just like that just wasn't the scenario. So it was tough. And also, I was the only Black person in his office. And I do believe that for the most part, people were pleasant, right? I didn't think that one person, she just kind of like disappointed me. I don't want to say it's because I'm Black. I just think maybe that was just her personality. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But this one guy, Dabney knows. I'll just won't mention names. I won't mention roles,
Mm-mm.
but he definitely has some major like aggression towards me. And it was over flags one time. Like so, as an intern, like
Mm.
it was part of our job to get flags from like the post office in the Capitol. And I just found that he was just giving me like, really like menial work and nothing like, too substantive.
Mm-hmm.
And, I asked him like, I was like, hey, like, if you need me to do like the flags, for example, because even though that's like really anything, I was like, but I could do it. And he got all spicy with me. He was like, oh, I don't know what you're doing, but I know the other interns are doing, blah, blah, blah. And my mom just like, so how do you know what the other interns are doing, but you don't know what I'm doing, but we sit right next to each other. And so he was just like real, real, real rude. I had to let it go though. Like I had to let it go
Yeah.
because I don't hold grudges because not my personality. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like, if it's still there, I should call, but I ain't gonna do it until I'm so yeah, so it was rough. It was a really interesting experience. Um yeah, that's just it to be honest. And I think that when people see it on a resume, they do ask about it because that he I don't want to call him a household name, but people know who he is, right?
Yeah.
And people also like they look at me kind of side eye too, like, oh, like you're a Black person, you enter in its office, and then got to explain like, hey, like those are the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. They have a 535 initiative. But one thing I did take from it that was reiterated to me, emphasized, is that a large part of who we are and what we believe in is just simply how we were raised, right? And
Mm.
so I think it's important, as we become parents and, just to the viewers watching, as we bring in like this next generation or, if you're a mentor and such, like, just be mindful, like, how you mold these kids because they're going to be adults one day and they're going to be making decisions that are going to impact other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Like, even if you aren't a parent, you probably are surrounded by
Yeah, just some
kids
people,
in general.
just some
And
people who have some, you have some type of influence over. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I agree. And I think like you weren't the only one who was in a Republican office that summer that was not Republican, but I feel
Mhm.
like that's such a, I feel like people forget that sometimes, when I feel like the Capitol really tried to emphasize with us that, like, even if people are on the other end of the political spectrum, there is this like opportunity that should be given to listen to people, because at the end of the day, like you were saying, like they were raised by someone, and so their thoughts were formed by who they were influenced by. Doesn't mean that people can't change. Some people don't want to change, and that's like,
That's on them.
that's on
Yeah.
them, because there comes a time where you grown and you can just read a book and like
What?
Google.
Yeah.
We live in the Google age. Like, it's not that hard, but there are some people that literally just don't know, because they're not, their
Yeah.
surroundings are, no one's challenging them. Who they're surrounded by isn't anyone that's challenging them, and so you may
Yeah.
be the opportunity to challenge them. um it's just like how, like, you may be the deciding factor on whether or not they're willing to listen or not sometimes.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. But some of the other interns, like they was asking me about like being black and stuff like that.
No, yeah, you
But
I'm not talking about the people you, well, not all of the people you.
yeah, but but your comment just made me think about that. And then also one little side note, for law school, I actually wrote my diversity statement about interning on Capitol Hill. And
Wow.
not not necessarily so much like just his office, but just like the overall experience and
Mhm.
just how the most people I saw that looked like you and I, who were black, they were, like custodian workers,
Yeah.
cafeteria, you know, postal. And I'm just like, wow, like why every time I got to see a brother and sister, like this is, their occupation. I'm not saying nothing's wrong with that.
Mhm.
But what I am saying is just like there's just too many white people in these spaces. Like,
Yeah.
we need some more representation.
Yeah, and they're representing, a lot of times they're representing areas or states that are like really diverse, and you're just like, so you're telling me you don't have one person, like you don't have a representative staff that
Hmm.
like reflects everybody that lives in your state or your city? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. um
Definitely.
so yeah, if you're listening and you're interested in law and politics, that's a question I have for you later. Definitely look into programs like this, or just to get your foot in the door onto Capitol Hill, because we definitely need more of us. Also, the majority of people that I saw that looked like us were already in our program. We're like,
Exactly. Or like, who came through it, or just like we're interns and stuff like that. It wasn't many people.
no, yeah. And like the higher ranking you went up, the less of us
The
there
less
were.
people know.
So a lot
Yeah.
of us were like, if there were interns, they were like the staff assistants or like the legislative coordinators or something like that. Like, and then after
Not
that,
like
it
the
was
chief
just
of
like,
staff type scenario.
not like chief of staffs. There were very few black, at least chief of staffs.
And,
Um, and I guess just to continue forward,
uh-huh.
switching gears back to, I want to hear more about your law experience. And first, what was it like to go from an HBCU, a historically black college or university, to a predominantly white institution, which is, she goes to the University of Michigan right now, which is also cold. Like, going from Florida to Michigan. I'm from New York and I wouldn't go to Michigan.
And I wonder if I'm crazy sometimes. I feel like I am because I escaped this um this past winter because our classes were online, so I came
Mhm.
back home to South Florida. But escaping from me in the winter, I gotta endure that. So
Yeah, especially because like I feel like you thought DC was cold in the winter too.
yeah, I thought DC was cool. I don't know, like I just I like the school, and yeah, that's where I'm at. So I will describe my transition as interesting, very very interesting. Um, like you mentioned, like it's a geographic difference. I'm coming from being, south to the Midwest, and people are just different in the Midwest. Um, they are. They're just. It's just. It was just. It was just interesting. You
Mhm.
know, it was just different. different than home. And regards to just like going from a HBCU to a PWI, um, I hate to use the word interesting again, but that's what it was. Like I'll be, pressing on like the screen, like during class, like, dang, where are the Black people at? Like I just, I I reflect on my HBCU experience so much. I really do. And I'm happy that I had those 4 years at FAMU and I had the opportunity to make friends. Like, like I call them like really like, my brothers and sisters, right?
Mm-hmm.
To like hold on to, hold, near and dear to my heart and to just, be support. And, you know, I just want to throw it out like it's not the scenario to where, oh, because you went to HBCU, you don't know how to acclimate and be around like white people, whatever. Like that's not the case. I just think people are different, to be honest. Like some some stuff that I see people do, I'm just like, a Black person gonna do this. It's just one of those scenarios. Like it's just different. It's just weird.
It's just
But
like you're around that more.
yeah, yeah, I'm just around that more. Yeah, I think that like there's just some like personality differences,
Mm-hmm.
as well. But it's not necessarily like a bad thing, right? Because no single person is the same. And actually, like the closest friend that I have at Michigan, she isn't even Black. Actually, like she's a white young lady, and she is the sweetest person ever. And she has been such a wonderful friend to me and support. And we actually, bonded based on like our faith, like in God. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we pray together, we uplift each other, and she's fantastic. And who would ever, thought that, my closest friend at the University of Michigan would even be Black. You get what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a pleasant experience. And I knew that for sure, going to these one of the top law schools that, Black people are going to be limited, number wasn't going to be many of us. And so I wanted to be sure that whatever school I went to, it was like, like at least like liberal, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like I could be myself there, like I could vibe. And I think that, University of Michigan, like it does provide me that. So although it's cold, I'm happy with my choice.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you were able to like find that like your friend and like some sort of
Yeah.
like sense of community. Because
Yeah.
also like you were doing this over Zoom too, which is not
Yeah.
Zoom
It,
University was not easy.
yeah. It wasn't easy, but I like I'm involved in like the Black Law Students Association, and people there like are great. And so, I still do have like a community of Black people to be around because
Mhm.
like you need that. I
Yeah.
think that if you are a Black person and you watching this, like if you don't have no Black friends, like get you some. I could be your friend. Like I really think like it's just, so important to have. And
Hmm.
also, going back in the fall, like for this upcoming academic year, there's like I don't know if I'll be friends with undergrads, but they there and
Yeah.
just like the other graduate schools and colleges, there's people, other Black people in there as well, and
Mm.
also as well like other people of color like who aren't Black.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get you some if you Black, make sure you got because you also you need that community for like
Yeah,
when you have professors that are white that are trying you or like
yeah,
say something problematic. You need someone to look to be like or to like rant about it. Like you just
yeah.
leave and then you just rant and vent.
I will say for me like one of the toughest things about going to MLI is just like the whole like for example in class we'll talk about like you know what the race and just like the race component of class. It was it wasn't necessarily triggering, right? But it was a scenario where it was just like, oh dang, like like I get tired of hearing about it because just like these are lived experiences,
Hmm.
for me and my our people. Yeah, I'm glad I guess that my um white classmates are being taught it, but at the same time, like it does still does something like to me.
Hmm.
It's not something necessarily that, I don't want to hear about my lived experiences. Pretty much, that's what it is.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, because I have a friend that's in medical school and she's white. And even from my experience, even though I appreciated my master's program, but I don't think we talked about race enough, like compared for my white peers to be able to like
Mhm.
understand, especially as people that are going into world as like public administrators. Like I felt like we should have talked about it more. But she was saying the same thing about how like we talk about racism within medicine, and she was like, sometimes I feel like it should just be with the white like students, like
It's just like
the
you telling me something like I already know.
yeah, because like the
So
black students and brown students should be able to opt out of it, because it's like, yeah, this is just my daily life, or like
yeah,
these are stories that I know, like I know these stories, so it's like, why do I have to sit through it?
and then you know, a part of me, like I don't know, like a part a part of me is just like, why don't y'all know? Why does got to be emphasized, so much in like 2021? And I guess that's just another like just a added frustration, right?
Mhm.
Because it's just like, wh- why why don't you know? Like why we teaching people like it's elementary or something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you say that too, because I'm referencing a TikTok, but TikTok can be very informative. Make sure you check the information that you're getting. Don't just believe everything on TikTok. But
Yeah.
this black woman was on TikTok explaining her and her sister-in-law are married to brothers that are white, and their mom is white, and she was asking them questions about their hair, and they basically like spit out a bunch of like historical facts about black hair, and their mother-in-law was just like, why do you know all of that? Like she was just like, how do you know all of this? Like she's like, did you guys talk about this before? And she's like, no, we've never talked to it about it with each other. We've always been taught this since we were children. Like,
Exactly.
and like she was
Yeah.
talking about how like that's such a big thing. Like black people are just, we already know,
Yeah.
but like white people, they're just now learning about our history. It's like we
Mm,
know our history and we know their history too. Sometimes
yeah.
better than
Yeah. And like I said, for me, my dad, like he took me to, his music political leaders and stuff like that. Like I already
them.
been knew like the game and how things, operated in the system and all that stuff, whatever. But it's just something I guess I gotta sit with,
Yeah, yeah.
sit with, and advocate for just continued change. Because
Mhm.
it is something that people in the school like had wanted when like last year's protest had kickstarted, right? Like they wanted their peers to, be informed in this manner. And so I guess like, it is good for them and the wishes the upperclassmen like is being fulfilled. But I
Mhm.
just know like how I feel, just hearing about it. And it's just like, okay, you know, all right,
Yeah.
just gotta listen to what I already know.
Yeah. And sometimes those can like, you're hoping that it ends well, but like sometimes there's that one or two people that like say something, like even if they didn't mean it, it's just like, well, now I gotta, like sometimes you want to sit through those and want to have to sit back and not have to say anything.
Well, and you see,
Sometimes.
that's another reason why I'm so glad that I chose MLA because people don't get out of pocket like that. Like
Mm.
I go to school with some really phenomenal people, and who just make I guess you say like a good effort to be mindful of like what they say, how they say it, and like they're just aware of things for the most part. So
Mhm.
I did good picking schools.
I'm glad. I'm glad. I have one person in mind. Mm. It was going well. And then the young lady had to
We'll
be
just leave it
like,
at that.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll just leave it at that. She had to say something that like, you don't want to step in. And then it's just like, well,
Mm.
I can't just let this sit there and let like ignorance like sit there. So I need to say
Yeah,
something. Because I
you
can't
gotta.
expect that everyone else will say something. So at least I know what I'm saying is correct. Like,
Yes,
it's
definitely.
um, but overall, like, how was your first year? I mean, you kind of mentioned that already, but like, what type of law do you want to pursue?
So I am hoping to work at a law firm after I graduate. What size law firm that is QTNA to be announced. We'll just see how, you know, things go. But
Mm-hmm.
I also have other aspirations like outside the law. And so I'm really interested just to see how, like, God orders my steps and just like, you know, where his will takes me. So, for example, like I really want to get into real estate. I did a gap year before I started law school, and I worked as a city year, like a AmeriCorps,
Mm-hmm.
down in Little Haiti at a high school.
Ooh.
And like Little Haiti is like, really known for climate gentrification.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always knew it was a thing, but then like my kids, like they live in this community. I'm just like, well, damn, like, like if it gets gentrified, like what's gonna happen to my kids and like, their parents, because this is what, they can afford. Like this is their home now. And so I have this thing to where I'm just like, I I would wanna buy buy back like, land and, like build up like, apartments or just, something to provide like, fair, ethical, housing for people. That's actually nice that they go for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also I really enjoy cooking and baking. And so I want to have my own restaurant one day. I
Ooh.
don't plan on being like the head chef or anything. I'll be the owner. So, like it'll be my business. But, I do have other aspirations like outside the law. And so I'm interested just to see, how I could intertwine like my legal career with all this other stuff. Cause like, like I could read my own contracts and all that, but it's just like I still want to use my degree. So we'll just see how things work itself out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that kind of went into my last question as well, but like, any advice that you have for Black people, especially interested in law and politics? I know you don't want to run, but like, because you have
Yeah,
that background.
I would say be genuine, right? Because I think that people like if they don't pick up on it the first time, they will pick up on it eventually. If you're not being, genuine, you're like authentic self with them. Um, Network definitely. Um, be strategic. Be very strategic when it comes to applying to law schools, and if you want to get into politics, plan ahead. And also, here's one big thing that I learned: do not overshare. Do not
Yes.
overshare because people they like to keep tabs on you. All right, like you'll think someone has like your best interest at heart, but just to believe like they talking to somebody else
Mm-hmm.
about you. So like don't don't overshare anything that you don't you know want to get out to keep to yourself. And I think that the viewers like watching, if you know if you haven't gotten in a habit of just like establishing boundaries with people, just go on. Now's a good time to start. And that's something I struggle with, myself,
Mm-hmm.
like establishing, those healthy boundaries without like, for example, like offending somebody. But I think that there's a balance in, establishing boundaries without being rude. And if they take offense, that's more on them than it is on you.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's that's it. Don't listen to any advice except for that. I'm
And
working on the boundaries thing too because I
yeah,
don't want to be a people pleaser or like a
definitely.
yes woman, but like I think it's the overachiever ness in me that thinks like doing more
Mm-hmm.
that I will get more or like doing more means more people will like me and that's not necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm.
Just do what you're told.
Yeah.
That's the boundaries that I've learned. It's just like if someone asks you to do something, just do that. You don't have to do
Mm-hmm.
that and then give them
And
like
go
an
over
extra.
beyond. Yeah.
Yeah, because then that's their expectation of you and then you'll get burnt out essentially.
Yeah. And, and definitely, I really want to place emphasis on this. Like, don't overshare because
Mm-hmm.
people keep tabs. And I have like this has been like a personal experience like about like from me because I don't share like too much in general. And you know,
Mm-hmm.
people actually like to categorize me as like a pretty like nonchalant person. And the minute I do give like people just a little bit of something, they take it and run with it. And I'm just like, oh no,
Mm-mm.
back to listening.
I definitely, especially if you're trying to go on Capitol Hill, don't overshare.
Yeah. Oh, especially in DC.
Yeah,
Especially
DC
in
in
DC.
general. DC in general, I learned that real like not
Yeah.
necessarily like because I overshared. Because at the end of the
But just
day, like you want to be
like
your genuine.
observing.
Yeah, it's also just like protecting yourself as well. Because like until you
Yeah.
really know people and like you know that you can trust them, like kind of like put that, like you said, that boundary of just like, okay, I'm only gonna go
Yeah.
this far with with these people or something.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
if it
That's just a
doesn't bite
good.
you now, if you're running
It
in the
will later.
future, if you're running for like public
Yeah.
service in the future, it will come back. Unfortunately, but it will come back. So,
Yeah.
mhm. So, I mean, my
Yeah.
last
Real
question,
time. Real time.
exactly. My last question was about like where do you see yourself moving forward? But you kind of like already answered that. But I'm gonna change it a little bit for like what type of life you're
Oh,
creating for yourself. If you could give me like three adjectives to like describe the type of life that you want to create for yourself. So not like things that you will be doing, but just like how you want to be. Like if you could describe your life in three words, like what are you creating for
I actually don't think I can describe it in 3 words.
yourself?
Can I tell you though? Just tell you?
Yeah, tell me whatever you want.
Okay. Yeah. So I feel like I will I will like a life of luxury, honestly, but that's sustainable
Mm,
because I care about the environment, right? And I care about people
hmm.
because you know all this like you know fast fashion and you know all this other stuff like it impacts people. So if I could have like you know like that high scale living that I want while being sustainable, I'll really enjoy that. And I also you know I will say that you know luxury looks different to everybody, and so you
Mm,
all don't know what I mean when I say luxury, but I know that like it's luxurious to me.
yeah,
And I think that particularly like Black women, we deserve a life of luxury.
period.
Whatever that like, whatever luxury looks like to you, because I am your sister, like
Mm,
right, like Black women, I'm telling you, like you deserve like a life of luxury, and I pray that you get it because we
yeah.
work so hard, we really do,
Hmm.
and we just be bearing the brunt and stuff. And so I want to also have that life, but that's a side note. But I look forward to, you know, being a wife and like you know, a mother one day and just, you know, just being a positive impact, you know, on the world. I think is really interesting because I think that, you know, from 2018 till now, my interests have changed as well as like, you know, my perspective and how I handle life situations. And so honestly, I feel like I'm just letting, you know, God order my steps and just you know, seeing how the cookie crumbles. And I just know at the end of the day, like it'll be great and I'll be happy and I'll get my luxurious life too. I know that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep.
That's that's such a great like note, positive note to end on, like the serious questions. I
Yeah.
love that. And I wish that for you and I wish that for every Black woman that so
Period. Yeah.
life. So go and get
Definitely.
it. Go and get it.
Definitely.
All right. So that's the end of the serious questions. Next up is the speed round. So I'll be
Okay.
asking you, I mean, I call it speed round, but let's just call it like speed fun round.
Okay.
Um, I have about, I think, 5 questions to ask you. And don't think too hard about it. Just
Answer.
answer. Yeah.
Okay.
So are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The first question I have for you is Florida usually gets a bad rep in our country as a state. What's your favorite part about your state?
it's gonna sound like a weird answer, but I am gonna say it is going to be the Black people in South Florida. That's my favorite part, honestly,
Mm.
because that's where I'm from. That's what I'm included in. The Black
Mhm.
people in South Florida, like we just live down here. That's my favorite part.
Okay. I love that. I love that. Um, Also, next question. We didn't talk about this earlier, but you are a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which is the
Yes, ma'am.
first Black sorority in the nation. You are part of Beta Alpha chapter.
Yes, that's what I was the chapter I was initiated into in
Yeah.
undergrad.
Yeah. So I would love to know what's one of your favorite AKA moments. I know you have a lot, but I just one of them.
So actually, my favorite AK moment is not related to like undergrad. It's
Mhm.
actually pretty recent.
Mm.
And my mom, she was initiated into the sorority as well. And it has been like a lifelong dream of hers because everybody in my family is like AKA. And so she's been wanting it for a while. And so that's my favorite moment to actually see it, you know, happen for her.
Aw, I love that. What was she initiated recently?
Yeah. What is this? July? So last month. Yeah.
Oh, congrats to your mom. Oh, I love that. And now y'all can be AKAs together. I love
Yes.
that for
Yes.
her. Next question. Like you mentioned your mom, you've mentioned your dad, but who's one of your inspirations? It could be someone you know, someone you don't know, just someone that
It's so
inspires
interesting
you.
you asked me this. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting you asked me because I was actually talking to my friend the other day about just the, three people in my life, like who I just admire so much. And for one, here's three people, and it's actually like three Black men. Of course, like my dad, and it's actually like my granddad and one of my great uncles. And that's just because like I've witnessed and also have conversations with them to where it's just like you just see them make things happen like by like honestly like by faith.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. That's why I admire them. Like everything that they do, everything that they work towards, how they conduct themselves, like it's all through faith. And I just hope to get to a level to where I just pray before I worry. Or, even in fact, like I just don't worry at all because that faith is just like just there. So those are three people that I guess I could say like I kind of like admire like the most.
Yeah, I love that. Mm.
Yeah.
All right, next question. If you had to choose a favorite congressman or woman or congressperson, who would it be?
Let's see. I don't really know. This is a good question, Dabney. I'm not too sure
Thanks.
if I have a favorite.
That's okay if you don't have one either.
Yeah, I yeah, I don't have a favorite. I don't have a
Are there
favorite.
any that like you're like, I respect that person?
Um, Al Lawson.
Mm.
Yeah, he's from Florida. Al Lawson.
Mhm. Okay, good to
Yes.
know. And then next, the last question I have for you is like you've mentioned you like cooking and food, but I would love to know what does travel look like for Albany? What's like your next travel destination?
Oh, so I am actually going to Cabo
Ooh.
next month for my best friend's birthday. But I do like to travel. I haven't dabbled into the realm of solo traveling yet,
Mm.
but maybe one day. My favorite. Well, I ain't gonna act like I've been everywhere in the world, but my favorite travel spot thus far has been Japan. I would love to go back there.
I would love to go. Let me know when you go because Japan sounds
Yeah, I
amazing.
would love. It was amazing. It was so wonderful, and it's interesting how things come full circle. So, growing up down here in South Florida, like it's a diverse melting pot, and
Mhm.
so for me, like in elementary school, for example, like I was around predominantly people like of Haitian descent. Like they either, you know, their parents came here, or
Mm-hmm.
like they're just first gen, like they just came here,
Mm-hmm.
And then we have like Little Havana, like we have like the Hispanics, and then of course you just got like African Americans like myself, and then you got the Asians. Like it's just a diverse melting pot, right? And I
Yeah.
think I was watching like a pageant one time, and like I learned about like Martinique and like Zanzibar, and so yeah, so like that's besides the point. But actually, I've kind of like been recycling like the intro of this for a long time, and I even used it as an intro for like my law school personal statement. But the basis of the statement that I've just revamped over the years is just like how much of a better world we'll live in if people take the opportunity just to see how much more we have in common than we do have different.
Mm-hmm.
That'll make such a world of a difference when you realize the commonalities you have, with people than the differences, because you have less to nitpick about, and you have more to enjoy with someone. And
Yeah.
so that's just what I thought about when I mentioned Japan, because I just loved it there.
I love that for you too. And yeah, I think that's like why traveling is so important. It's just like you get to
Yeah,
that point of like you're learning so much and you're like, wow, this is so different. But really at the root of it, it's like the
yeah,
essence of like humanity of just wanting to be like seen and celebrated and appreciated.
yeah. Like for example, like kids are gonna be kids. They want to have fun, and so that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. That's all the questions that I have for you.
thank
I
you.
really loved having you on. There's so many, like, if y'all weren't taking notes, like, y'all should take notes because she gave so many little gems. And I'm going to keep those gems for safekeeping for myself as
Thank
well.
you.
But thank you so much, Abani, for coming on. And I just really appreciate having you.
Of course, this was actually fun. I was a little bit. I texted you, I was a little bit nervous, but it wasn't bad.
No, you did
It was
good. You
great.
did good. Didn't I tell y'all Albany was about to drop some gems? Like, honestly, the whole way through, she was dropping gems. And I loved it because I learned so much. And it also reminded me of things to remember for myself. And so, for this week's Dabney Debrief, the question I have for you is related to um, your life and the life that you are creating for yourself. We talk a lot about that for her and what she aims to do. And how her interests have changed over the years and how her HBCU experience has tied into that, and as well as her law school experience. And so, my question for y'all is what type of life are you creating for yourself? And also, what boundaries do you need to set in order to create that? I know that's a deep, really deep question. I know I'm asking that question just as much for me as it is for you, if that makes sense, because that's something that I need to think about as well. And so make sure to think about that this week and make sure to check out the Instagram so that you can leave your responses to me. But that's all for today, y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to today's episode. For links and resources, check out the episode notes. If you liked what you heard, help your girl out by leaving a 5-star rating and a review. For more content and updates, follow the show's Insta at the Uplift_podcast. And spread the word by telling your friends and sharing on social media. Subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. For any questions or business inquiries, you can email me at theupliftpodcast1@gmail.com. This was The Uplift with Dabney Brice. See you next time.